Social media is this world that's supposedly all about sharing. But have you ever stopped to think about all the people who don't? For every single person posting, there are literally hundreds, maybe even thousands, who are just watching. They're the silent majority of the internet, and today we're going to figure out why.
Yeah, think about it. It's this massive group of people, and hey, maybe you're one of them. You scroll, you read, you watch all the videos, but you almost never, if ever, actually post something yourself. So who are these silent users, and what makes them choose to stay on the sidelines?
Well, let's give them a name, the silent observers. And while it's really easy to just label them as shy or antisocial, the truth is, their silence is often a very deliberate choice. It's driven by a psychology that is way more complex and interesting than you might think.
And we're not talking about some tiny niche group here. Nope. We are talking about a massive, silent majority. In fact, their presence is so huge that most online communities literally couldn't exist without them. The numbers behind this are, well, they're staggering.
Get a load of this number. Across a ton of platforms, there's this idea called the 99-1 rule. And what it suggests is that up to 90%, that's 9-0, of users are lurkers. They consume all the content, but they don't contribute. Then you've got about 9% who chip in occasionally, and just a tiny 1% who are the super users creating almost everything. So yeah, the vast majority of people online are silent observers.
So this isn't just one type of person with one single reason for staying quiet. Their silence is actually the result of some very distinct psychological mindsets. Let's dive in and explore the three most common profiles.
First up, we have the deliberate observer. Now, this isn't someone who's afraid to speak up. Not at all. They are simply making a conscious, very calculated choice to listen and observe instead of broadcast.
Deliberate observers, you see, they see a big difference between actually living an experience and then curating it for an audience. They might use social media as this incredibly powerful learning tool, or maybe just a way to keep up with friends, but they just don't feel that need for validation through likes and comments. They're usually pretty skeptical of the whole performance culture online and are really mindful of the digital footprint they're leaving behind. This quote just nails their philosophy, right? The goal for them isn't to build some online brand, it's to live an authentic life. And a lot of the time, that means stepping away from the screen. Okay, now let's look at another type of silent user, one who has a completely different motivation. So, our second profile is the privacy guardian. And if the deliberate observer is all about authenticity, the guardian is motivated by two things: security and control. These are the folks who are keenly aware of just how much data social media platforms are collecting on them. They've read the headlines, they know the deal. They see every single post not just as a fun photo or a thought, but as a data point, a piece of information that can be collected, analyzed, and maybe even misused. So for them, not posting is a form of digital self-defense.
This quote right here gets to the absolute heart of their mindset. They just refuse to let their personal lives become a product to be fed to an algorithm. For a privacy guardian, silence is a really powerful act of resistance in this age of constant surveillance.
And finally, that brings us to our third profile, the overwhelmed avoider. Now, for this group, the decision not to post comes from a totally different place. It's not about a desire for authenticity or privacy, but for mental peace.
The overwhelmed avoider feels the immense pressure of the online world. You know, that constant comparison, the need to present this perfect life, the absolute fire hose of information. It is just mentally draining. They might also be afraid of backlash, the negative comments, or getting dragged into some pointless, toxic argument. So they just opt out. It's a way to protect their own mental well-being.
Okay, this slide really highlights a key difference. For the privacy guardian, their choice is proactive and logical, right? It's all about protecting their external data. But for the overwhelmed avoider, their retreat is reactive and emotional. It's designed to protect their internal peace. So you see, it's the exact same behavior, staying silent, but for completely different reasons.
So we have the observer, the guardian, and the avoider. Three totally different profiles, but they actually share some common psychological threads. So what is it that connects them all?
Okay, so across all three of these profiles, we see a much lower need for external validation. Their self-worth just isn't measured in likes. They also tend to have much stronger boundaries between their private lives and their public lives. And finally, they're driven by intrinsic motivation. That means their own goals and values, not the siren song of social rewards. At the end of the day, these aren't passive people. They're just motivated by an internal scoreboard, not an external one. So what is the big takeaway here? Why does understanding these silent observers actually matter to all of us, whether we're posting every single day or not at all?
Well, ultimately, it shows us that there's no single right way to be online. It's not some battle of active posters versus passive lurkers. It's about understanding that we all have different needs, different motivations, and different boundaries when we log on. And just recognizing that can help us all be a little more intentional and empathetic in our own digital lives.
So, we'll leave you with this question to chew on. What about you? Is your online self a carefully curated performance for an audience, or is it a genuine reflection of who you really are? And maybe, more importantly, are you okay with your answer? The next time you're scrolling silently, it's definitely something worth thinking about.